finished writing his letter to the Romans here in Corinth, he needed someone who was trustworthy, reliable, and with sufficient authority to deliver it to the Christian community in Rome. So who did he choose? A leader of the church in Corinth. Someone he describes in the letter as a patron, a deacon, a serving minister within the church. But this wasn't a man, it was a woman called Phoebe. A few miles away from Corinth are the remains of an ancient Roman port. 40 years ago, the sunken ruins of a 4th century church were discovered here. Some believe it was dedicated to Phoebe.
Phoebe was probably a wealthy woman because St. Paul calls her a benefactor or patroness, prostatis in the Greek. So she was a woman of some eminence possibly and substance.
What does this powerful story of Phoebe mean to women in the church today? What does it say?
It says to me that women were a part of the hierarchy, they were a part of the community, they were vital for its spread and its growth, and those possibilities are all available today. The image of God, which St. Paul says we are called to show forth, is not male. The image of God is not female. The image of God is male and female. The two become one flesh. I mean, hey, inconceivable that you could have a single-sex kingdom of God.
Phoebe is not the only powerful woman in the story of the early church. In fact, the New Testament is full of them. There is, of course, Mary, Jesus' mother, and Mary Magdalene, one of his most famous followers. But there is also Joanna, Susanna, Priscilla, Tryphena, Tryphosa, Persis, and Julia. And then a certain woman called Junia, whom Paul describes as outstanding among the apostles. This title so offended later Christians that they tried to alter it.
No one could imagine that a female could have been called an apostle. So the Junia, the woman Junia became Junias, a man. Unfortunately, we have now evidence, textual evidence that indicate that it was originally a woman.
So you're saying that there was an attempt to make Junia masculine in order to hide her feminine nature?
Yes, these women were downplayed. And in my view, this happened because the tradition in the society was not ready to accept these radical changes introduced by early Christianity.
Outside the Bible, there is more evidence for the crucial role played by women in the early church. An early Christian text, written in the 2nd century, describes the life of a young follower of Paul, a woman called Thecla. At Silifke, in modern-day Turkey, there are the remains of a cult centre dedicated to her memory. A local historian, Silal Taskaran, agreed to show me the underground church.
Saint Thecla is the student of Saint Paul. She was a young girl and she was going to be married. But after have heard the speech of Saint Paul, she decided to be Christian.
According to her story, Thecla gave up everything and followed Paul all over Asia Minor as he preached the new Christian faith. She was pursued by her angry parents who wanted her back, and several times she was arrested and even faced death. She found refuge in this cave, where at the end of her life she is believed to have miraculously disappeared. That's a site of a miracle.
Yes,
in there. So people would have the windows here so they could see the place where the miracle took place.
That's right.
Later Christians built a huge complex in Thecla's memory. The original basilica was over 80 meters long. At the time, it was one of the biggest churches in the world and attracted thousands of pilgrims.
Christianity has taught, not by Jesus Christ himself, but by his apostles, 12 apostles, especially by his St. Paul, But they were all men. But as women, we find only Ayah Thecla as a teacher for the new faith.
Thecla's story shows how in the early church women could be teachers and evangelists in their own right. Paul describes Thecla as the apostle equal to the other apostles, a rare and significant title, particularly as she was a woman. All of this is more proof that powerful female figures like Thecla existed in the early church and that these women too should be counted amongst Jesus' disciples. At the Cave of St. Paul in Ephesus, there is some extraordinary visual evidence that illustrates the negative attitude of the later church fathers to women. Next to the ancient image of Paul, there is another painting of Thecla. Both of these paintings are roughly the same size, and both have their right hand raised in the classic Christian gesture of the teacher. So in the mind of the original artist, both Paul and Thecla had equal authority, a confirmation of the early church's sexual equality. But both of Thecla's eyes and her right hand have been scratched out. Originally it was thought that this had been done by Muslims, but if it had been, Paul would have been damaged too. It's now thought that this was the handiwork of later Christians who were so unhappy with the idea that Paul, a man, would share his authority with a woman. It seems even Paul, the most powerful of all the disciples, was subject to the will of the later church. The radical message he inherited from Jesus was in turn watered down by his later followers. But it is that message which is the most important reason for my journey. The message that inspired all the disciples to give up their lives and attempt to change the world for the better. My purpose in investigating the 12 disciples was because I believe the world now needs disciples more than ever. So to find out what it takes to be a disciple today, my investigation has now brought me home to the north of England. In October 2004, there was a brutal murder of a local prostitute.
Police officers out in force again this afternoon, hunting for the rest of the remains of Lindsay Bourne.
In the same year, a group of Christian women decided to set up an aid organisation to help the city's street prostitutes. They called themselves the Joanna Project, inspired by one of Jesus' original female disciples.
There's this woman character in the New Testament. She decided to give up her status, give up all she has to follow Jesus and became his disciple. And we just thought it's such a good example.
When Jesus was in the Bible, he went to the places where society said, you shouldn't go. He went completely against everything that society thought of as acceptable. The women to me are friends and are people that I value and I love, and it's just, that's my motivation.
How are you doing anyway? All right, up and down. Really?
Isn't this risky? Because there have been a lot of prostitutes who have been killed up and down the country. There have even been problems here in Leeds.
There is a degree of risk, but then I think there is I think life is risky. We have a people carrier, which is like a mobile drop-in. So we normally drive around the area, and whenever we see girls standing around, especially in such cold nights, it's all about friendship.
Have you ever heard of Teen Challenge? It's like a residential rehab in Wales. You know, you come off drugs, yeah, that's not really, you can lock yourself in a room and come off them. But they deal with like all the issues, all about you being able to have a new life and actually having a new start.
Last year, the Joanna Project worked intensively with 12 Leeds prostitutes. 6 of them are now off the streets and drug-free.
It seems to me that you're saying that discipleship isn't just about a title, it's a way of life, it's an action.
Oh, totally.
It's not just an instant transformation, it's a journey, it's learning, it's walking alongside the women and supporting them, crying with them, laughing with them, having fun with them. And it's just about doing life with people.
Right, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you for talking to us, more like.
The fact is that anyone can be a disciple. Anyone prepared to follow the message that Jesus first spelt out to his disciples in Palestine in the 1st century. It doesn't matter whether you are male or female, rich or poor, black or white, of whatever creed, colour or nation. It doesn't matter if you believe all the legendary stories about the 12 disciples or whether you accept all the things they are supposed to have done and said. The secret of being a disciple is not about power or authority for the church. It's not about worshipping relics or where a particular disciple is buried, or even about who wrote which bit of the Bible. What it is a way of life spelt out 2,000 years ago by the followers of Jesus. What is important is that they were willing to drop everything, to commit their entire lives, to follow Jesus, to take up his powerful message to oppose injustice and oppression wherever it's found. If you follow this path, you too can be a disciple.
If you want to follow up the issues raised in this programme, go to Channel 4's Faith and Belief website. The address is channel4.com/belief. Tomorrow night from 10:35 on Channel 4, From Betrayal to Crucifixion, it's Mel Gibson's brave and brutal religious film drama, The Passion of the Christ. Next tonight, Samira Ahmed and Easter Sundays, Channel 4 News.